Good evening. I'm Paul Decker, President-elect of APPAM, and it's my pleasure to introduce APPAM's President, Dr. Sandra Archibald. Those of you who know Sandy, you're well aware of the depth of her commitment to public service, to social justice, to environmental sustainability, and public policy research. Sandy's made significant contributions to policymaking and civic engagement in the U.S. through extensive involvement in public service and research designed to support sound public policy and management decisions. As Professor and Dean of the Evans School of Public Affairs at the University of Washington, there's a little joke that Sandy likes to tell Masters of Public Administration students. The public sector, she says, get the problems that business schools and law schools can't solve. While there's a lot of truth behind that joke, it really tells you all you need to know about Sandy. She's someone who's committed to making a difference, who's not afraid to take challenges head on, and she's a teacher and mentor who tells it like it is. Sandy's had a distinguished career in academia and public service. She's held academic and professional appointments at institutions such as the Hubert Humphrey Institute of Public Affairs at the University of Minnesota, Stanford University, the Environmental Protection Agency, and the Rockefeller Commission on Critical Choices for Americans. She's the author of over 100 publications and the recipient of numerous teaching and research awards. Too many to mention here tonight. Lucky for us, Sandy's passion and commitment has been an essential part of APPAM for many years now, in a variety of leadership roles. Before becoming president, Sandy served as APPAM's vice president, as the chair of the institutional representatives, and she's played key roles in APPAM's policy council, the executive committee, and the spring conference committee. I got to know Sandy well last year when we were both members of the strategic planning committee, collaborating with a group of colleagues during a year-long effort to establish a vision for APPAM and a strategy for how best to pursue that vision. I can attest to Sandy's tireless efforts in moving our organization forward and the impressive commitment she's demonstrating to help shape the future of APPAM. As president, Sandy's helped set a long-term vision for our growth. Under her tenure, Sandy has implemented several key components set forth in our strategic plan, including establishing a new committee structure to more fully engage the Policy Council in organizational decision-making, expanding active membership and seeking additional feedback from existing members, increasing the policy relevance of APPAM's work through greater interaction with policymakers and practitioners, and promoting increased integration across APPAM's disciplinary and methodological silos. At the same time, Sandy's also improved and enhanced APPAM's public presence. If next year I can leave the organization in as good a shape as Sandy has for the next president, I'll consider my tenure a success. I could go on, but I don't want to keep you from the guest of honor. Without further ado, please welcome Dr. Sandra Archibald.
Very much for that overly generous introduction, Paul. It's really nice to see a lot of old friends here and new faces. It's enjoyable to not be in charge of the conference this year, Paul. That's a new perspective, and I'm looking forward to having Sunny's perspective next year as the immediate past president. Well, when I picked my title, Effective Evidence-Based Policymaking, Some Critical Perspective, the world looked a little bit different than it even does today. It's amazing how quickly this public sector that we are living in is changing. As the 33rd anniversary of the Association of Public Policy and Management, and from my perspective, as Paul said, as a dean and a real long-term policy analyst, I do serve right now as my own policy analyst, and I have to tell you it's one of the most enjoyable things that I do. I think that we need to take a look at some of the critical perspectives about the world, about public policy making, about what we've learned about science and the intersection of policy, and how we can adjust and adapt to the rapidly changing environment. And I say that, everybody says that all the time, rapidly changing environment. Well, I don't know how many of you work in academic institutions, universities. Our university just a week ago decided that we were going to be coming to offer online education at half the cost that we presently offer our current educational offerings. Now, I don't know how we're going to do that, but the mandate is there and we're going to adjust. Online learning has gotten in the last 6 months to be courses that are 130,000 students around the world. Now, this is just in a short period of time. This is the kind of change that we're talking about that is affecting our institutions. And for those of us who won't be shaping them in the future, we can just say, oh, how interesting that this is the challenge you're going to face. But this is a challenge for our younger faculty and our researchers. And I just want to put out a few perspectives today on how I think things are converging to a window of policy change. I don't know, some of us have been around a while, and those windows don't open up very often, and I do think that we are facing one of those. So that's my perspective today that I'd like to impart a little bit to you. I like institutions. I like to talk about institutional change and institutional management. In an op-ed that I published in the Seattle Times in October, in the middle, of course, of the presidential debates, although I'd submitted it in a little bit of a fit after the first debate, and they didn't publish it for 2 more weeks, sitting on it thinking I might not be right. But the title was A Return to Civility and a Shared Concern for the Public Interest. Well, I argued that from my perspective as an educator, what would you think? Using evidence and trying to remain objective, while it won't necessarily get you the right answer, or the right decisions, or the right policies 100% of the time, it does help drive us toward the best possible outcomes in these extremely complicated times. I received many positive comments, but I also received my fair share of folks who called me optimistic. From the perspective of the profession that we are all dedicated to, we all are optimists. For those of us who chose this career path, 30 years ago, there was no discipline of public policy. There were those of us who wanted to apply our skill sets and work on important questions and make a difference in the world. We all wanted to contribute to effective evidence-based policy making, and we all shared the belief that evidence in the broadest sense of the word, data, information, scientific information, and analysis, can make a positive difference in assuring better decisions, or we would not likely have committed our careers to public service, particularly to improving the quality of public policy and management, which is also not often an easy job. But APPAM, in 33 years, has helped develop a culture of evidence in public policy. We're hard on ourselves, we're critical on ourselves, but I think we need to take a look at the impact that we've had and where we are positioned to step forward into this changed environment. We're not yet in the world envisioned by President Rebecca Maynard, when high-quality evidence is routinely produced and smartly used, as she requested, but we are better off in terms of growing acceptance of and investment in the production of high-quality evidence in a broad array of social programs. And we are a little bit farther along from the world that Doug Bezheroff puzzled through just a short while ago, as he was concerned that even the newly elected President Obama would not follow through with his promises to assess program effectiveness across a wide variety of programs. Nor would he link program effectiveness to program evaluation and resource use. Well, Doug, the 2014, where are you? Budget instructions do take us to that link and take us even beyond into a link between resources and continuous management improvement. These are not small changes, and we need to note them as not small changes. And last year, we heard an outstanding talk from President Sonny Ladd, who followed all of our advice. She accumulated the evidence, she confronted the evidence on a policy that she just about demonstrated doesn't have any effect. How are we going to marshal the rest of what we know about the problem to effect positive change? We know that knowledge building is slow. We know that our analysis is not always packaged in a way that's directly useful to our decision makers. And we also know that our evidence comes in many forms and that it doesn't always impact public policy decisions in the way we hope. But we all understand the complexities of the political process and the trade-offs. They're not always made transparently, we know that, by elected officials who trade off societal goals for their own political interests. And we know that the results are likely to be accepted wholesale, but we do expect that what we produce makes a significant contribution to knowledge that will move public decisions forward towards societal goals. Perhaps not tomorrow, but in time. So we as policymakers need to think about the strategies that we're using in our research and our dissemination of our research and our teaching, both the short run and the long run, about how we can make our policy research more relevant to decision makers. It's our organization, and it's our decision to make. Since context matters in everything that we do, by all accounts, government officials and foundations are anxious to use evidence-based policymaking and decision-making, and have been making new investments across the agencies at the federal level and within the states. I was not puzzled, but it is a puzzle to me that I was surprised to find out that the foundations are having such a collaborative role with the federal government in setting research directions in a variety of social programs. Research operations are often funded by nonprofits. Increasingly, higher education is funded by nonprofits. And I'll show you an example in a minute where there is a convergence of the impetus from external foundation funders into pushing the government farther and faster. We may have an ally in some of the issues that we would like to undertake.